if the ego is in charge of the relationship, it is all about body identification. It's about trying to get something from the world, from your partner, and it just leads to a feeling of emptiness and lack. And the spirit's use of the relationship is very, very different.
Hello, welcome. This is another episode of Holy Relationship Conversations with Jean. I'm Jean, and today we're going to be speaking with Jason Warwick and Emily Alexander. They are both very devoted teachers of A Course in Miracles and members of the Living Miracles community with David Hoffmeister, and have been for many years. And they also happen to be married. So today we're going to get their insights. Today's format is going to be a little bit different. Unfortunately, when I recorded this conversation, the video did not record, so I only have audio. But it's a really beautiful conversation. I found it very helpful, and I hope you will too. Welcome, Jason. Welcome, Emily.
Hello.
Hi.
We're here to explore the ideas of holy relationship, and today we're going to be talking about special relationship versus holy relationship and your experiences, anything you feel to share in the realm of relationship and its role in A Course in Miracles. So I think the easiest place to get started is if each of you would just give us your definition or your feeling about a holy relationship.
I was actually praying about this morning, and the word that just kept coming strongly into my mind was purpose. Like when I think of special relationship and holy relationship, that's what it comes down to for me. Like, who am I giving the relationship to? Because if the ego is in charge of the relationship, it is all about body identification. It's about trying to get something from the world, from your partner, and it just leads to a feeling of emptiness and lack. And the spirit's use of the relationship is very, very different. And I feel like through these years that Jason and I have been together, that's been a big lesson for me. Like I feel a huge transformations happened in my mind from thinking I knew what a relationship was for and what I wanted it to be, and being shown very gently as the years have gone on, what the true purpose is and where the true joy and happiness is. And it's that shift from trying to get something to letting the spirit come through and using the relationship for giving, whether it seems to be within the relationship or together, being used for a much higher purpose. So yeah, I think that was what was coming to my mind strongly this morning when I was praying about it, like a relationship given over to. And to me, that defines whether, if it's seen as a special relationship or a holy relationship.
I was thinking it's been a bit of a journey for me, because when I first started the course and would read the section Healed Relationship, which a lot of couples really love, because there's lines in there like, have faith, not now, hear not the call to separate. And throughout the whole section, it really has this feeling like there's you and your brother, and you're going to be going into a holy relationship together, and the ways of the past will no longer serve. You can't bring them in, so you don't know anything. Find the faith, trust in the Holy Spirit. And I really love those sections, and I feel like they really were very, very helpful and touched my heart. And then over the years, including maybe the 8 years we've been together, it's shifting into what feels more real to me now, which is that it's like Jesus and I, or the Spirit and I, not a full merge, but a feeling like that's where my holy relationship is, and then that gets extended and shared with Emily, and whatever seems to be triggered or reflected from Emily is an opportunity for me to clear with the Holy Spirit or Jesus. And yeah, it's been a bit of a journey from the beginning where we would just say everything, and then maybe have to have lots of times apart to find out, what did we really think about what we said? What did we feel? Then come together, then practicing speaking from the Holy Spirit. Oh, but I really need to share this too. And like the whole gamut of everything. But that's kind of the journey from it really seeming like there's two people, kind of Jesus just saying, okay, I'm going to acknowledge where you believe you're at, and I'm going to make this course. And I think, as David Hoffmeister always says, 7 chapters or 9 chapters on special relationship, because that's what we're attracted to. That's what the world we live in, where there's many brothers and sisters, and then ultimately for that merge. So I kind of wanted to share more of the journey of it rather than it being one or the other. So yeah.
Yes, so maybe we can look a little bit at your journey. The question I have in mind today is really, okay, we all are looking at the form of relationships. People get really excited about, who's together, what's happening to them. Are they, oh, they had a fight, or they bought a house, or we're really focused on the form in relationships. Like that's what makes it. If people live together, oh, that's a relationship. If they're apart, no, that's not a relationship. Like there are all kinds of rules in form. And so I'm feeling like if we could maybe use your relationship as kind of an example of, okay, let's look at the form, but what was the healing behind that? And what maybe we could do it on a timeline, starting from where the relationship started, and then where it is now, and the different experiences of healing that might come to mind. Either from starting from form or starting from the healing story, but I'd like to keep in mind that the form is sexy and fun to talk about, but it's really always comes down to the healing. And I know you two are very, very devoted to healing, and that's the real purpose behind all the forms. So maybe starting with the beginning of 8 years ago, and where the relationship was, or how it began. How do you know when you're in a relationship? How does that even, how do we even know?
Good question.
Well, it was interesting because before I ever met Jason, I actually had a dream about him. I think I was aware of Jason from Living Miracles, probably, from seeing him on YouTube or whatever, but never really had any thoughts about him or like a strong draw towards him. But I do remember I was actually in Australia at the time, and I woke up and I'd had this dream about him, and it was kind of, I wouldn't say startling, like it was a beautiful dream, but all I remembered was we were hugging in the dream, and I had this feeling in my heart of like the most intense love I'd never experienced it. It was something that I had not experienced in my life. But when we were holding each other, it was so intense, and we both felt it, and neither of us could let go. And then I woke up and I kind of forgot about it. And a few months later, we actually did meet at a retreat in Majorca, and I'd totally forgotten about the dream. And then I saw Jason again, and I don't know if it reminded me, but then that night I had another dream about him. So it was like something was kind of speaking to me from within, and I did feel this very strong draw towards him. And I think also because I was ready to make a deeper commitment in my journey. You know, up to that point, I wasn't actually living in the community. I felt very connected with the community, but not living full time in it. And I think even Jason was a symbol. Like, he'd been in the community for many years, and he had taken a lot of steps. So even that, with us getting paired up, and it really felt like the spirit was behind it. Like, it was not orchestrated. Nothing about it was orchestrated by me, but I could feel the desire to want to go in that direction. And it's like it pulled me deeper into the path. And yeah, I think at the beginning I had expectations of what it would look like. You know, I feel I always had this belief that a relationship would be my salvation. Like, I always wanted one. I always felt like that would be the answer to all of my problems. Like, whatever this lack I felt inside, or this emptiness, it was because I didn't have a loving partner. And so I think I had high expectations and hopes for the relationship. But because of the purpose of the relationship, like, it wasn't to falsely fulfill this lack. It could never do that. I felt at the beginning years, there was a lot of deep healing for me, like just seeing where those expectations would come up and in my perception weren't being met. And to the point where, you know, like Jason said, we had periods of being together and being apart. Like, it might be a few months together, a few weeks apart, or even a few months apart. But we did have a period where we actually kind of went our separate ways at one point. And I went to, we had a Living Miracles Center being set up in Spain. And I went to oversee that. And it was just when Jason and I had felt to let the relationship go. And, you know, looking back, I can even see the perfection of all of that. Like, I needed to find a strength within, and I couldn't get past the idea that it was going to be through Jason. Like, he would help me or whatever, fix me or fulfill this lack. And but when I went to Spain, it was like the spirit gave me this center to oversee, and all of these people came from all over Europe and even outside Europe. And my job in that time was purely to give. There was no avenue for me to try and get. And something in my mind accepted that. And I just started to fall in love with everyone. Like, my heart opened so widely with everyone in the way that I only thought could be met in like a romantic relationship. So I had a real experience that this lack that I was feeling within, what I thought was going to heal it, was wrong. Like, it was not it. And maybe not fully convinced, you know, I feel it's an ongoing journey, but a real palpable experience of, wow, it's in the giving. It's in the extending the love of the spirit is the only way that I'm going to feel complete. And it felt like that strengthening within needed to happen for even the next phase of our relationship to come in. And then Jason came to Spain and we just kind of explored what that would look like. But even in that, I had another dream soon before he came, where he said to me in my dream, I'm coming back to you. I had Svava actually come to me in a dream and say, he's coming back to you. It's written down, like the script is written. So these symbols would come in that really just showed me that the spirit was behind it. So then I feel, it was the next phase of our relationship. And then when Jason did come to Spain, I was still in that phase of overseeing the center and extending. And I just feel it's been a continuing journey of deepening, and it continues now. But for me, I can see my lesson is anytime I'm wanting something from the relationship, or I'm trying to get something, or I think there's a lack in me that needs to be filled, or from outside, it always leads to devastation. And so it's catching that quicker. It's like, oh, wow, that's not where my happiness is. It's everything, including my relationship with Jason, is supporting me to find the strength within. And then when I find that, that's when the love comes in. That's when the true collaboration comes in, and the sense of intimacy. But it's not from him. It's like symbolically he's given, but it's from a decision in the mind. And that's how the relationship is supporting me and deepening.
That just reminded me of that time when there was this Spain Center. That was the first time I met you, Emily, in projects online. And I was blown away with you at that time. You became like my big teacher for that phase, because I saw you as, like, I think we often call it stepping into magnitude. You were just so full on, I mean, so busy, and yet you would come into one meeting after the other all day, working, talking so calm and peaceful, while we were all kind of frantic, and then you would come in and, okay, this and this. And then we were all exhausted. It was during an illumination celebration. And then, you know, we were all just had these tiny roles, and you were just seeing everything. And then you would step on in front of the camera and start singing. And I'm just, oh my God, this is not a person. Who is this? So I feel like I was just one of the many witnesses who saw you just completely step into this new mind at that time. And then, yeah, to see where you were in your relationship at that's really beautiful. So Jason, how about you? While this was happening with Emily, where were you? What was your experience?
There's a scene. I'd been in the community for quite a while and had tried or attempted to, practice the principles of the course, or especially some of the high ideas, but something was stuck. And I remember David saying, he quoted a scene from Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, where Giocondo was trying to keep up with the other monks at the time, St. Francis, and it was raining and it was cold and there had not a lot of food, but he walks by this window and he's attracted to this woman. And David said, he didn't say my name directly, but he said, yeah, even Giocondo had to go with the attraction to a woman and admit something like he wasn't ready. And that really just devastated me. Like, what do you mean I'm not ready? I don't need a woman. Like, what are you talking about? It was ultimately denial. But it stuck with me. And then over the next few years of, I think, on travels and teaching, I started to see that, oh, there's something much deeper, a much deeper need that needs to be fulfilled ultimately by the Spirit. But over a few years, seeing that my calling did involve relationship, intimate relationship, not just like teacher-student or miracle worker or meeting people on the road, but it had this very strong attraction to that. And it's once I admitted that to myself, then I could really embrace the relationship. And I thought I'd have to leave the community, or it would mean I was less than or separate. But when I met Emily and saw the orchestration and went with it, then, yeah, it was part of a humbling journey to use what was given and what I actually was attracted to. So when those two things are lined up, what's given and I'm acknowledging consciously the desire for it, it's pretty fast healing, actually. Like David would always say, silence and mirroring are two very, if you had to, silence and relationships, yeah, mirroring. The word for relationship, mirroring. If you have those two things together, what a quick way to wake up. So I definitely had the relationship predominantly. And yeah, it's funny because you sent some topics or some themes last night at 1 a.m. Our time, they came through, and I actually got up at 4 and I read them. But before I read them, I was just praying in this meditation, and I had this feeling. I said, okay, Jesus, what do you want me to see? And the feeling or the experience that I had was that anytime somebody wants something from the world, whether it be food or a relationship, or a particular person, or somebody to react a certain way, what they're really wanting is an experience. They really want an experience. And it's learning almost to dissociate that the thing can give you the experience that you want. So all of us are going for peace and happiness and joy and love. And it's so displaced or projected onto the world and all the things. And the whole journey is to be honest about those desires and how they manifest in the world. Let's see how ultimately they don't line up with completely given by God. And so it's a clearing. There's actually a line I'd like to read from this experience, that the removal, it's from the body as means of communication. The removal of blocks then is the only way to guarantee help and healing. Help and healing are the normal expressions of a mind that is working through the body, not in it. If the mind believes the body is its goal, like it wants to make the body better or look pretty or get healthy, if the mind believes the body is its goal, any of those goals, it will distort its perception of the body, and by blocking its own extension beyond it, will induce illness by fostering separation. So when I was in this experience of, wow, whenever you search for something in the world, it's just because you want an experience. So why not go directly for the experience and let the spirit bring the form that will help, kind of like whims that will keep your mind high and in the experience. And he even says in the course, the Holy Spirit will fulfill all the things that you think you need, as long as you have need of it. But as soon as the mind hooks onto it as if it's really from that source and now it's hurting you, they may seem to go away. And so that was the other part of this experience last night was, yeah, anytime somebody loses something or something appears to go away, it's not what they think. It's actually because, like he says in the development of trust section, it's because you're now starting to perceive the lack of value that it always had. And so it must disappear. It's not because some active force is taking it away or you did something wrong. You're literally just not perceiving the value you did before. And so the ego's taking that loss as painful. But it was like, wow. So those two things together were like really touching for me last night. And then I read your desire, the notion of moving from specialness to holiness in relationships. I noticed people are so interested in the form of relationships, initially looking for instructions and roadmaps and form. I feel a desire to see how to use the form to move towards the holy instant. It was like totally in alignment. So I was excited for the talk today.
I'm curious about this idea of marriage. When you, what did marriage mean to you back then? What does it mean to you now? And what is the role? Like, what can it be used for? What role does it play in the healing and in a relationship?
Well, for me, it's really about a commitment. Because, not before I came to the Course in Miracles, I really thought, in some ways, I thought I was done with relationships. But once I really gave my heart over to the Spirit's plan for awakening, this desire for, particular forms over others, or I'm attracted to this, or I'm not attracted to that. It's like, whoa, I did not even know that was down there. It was really strong. David would call those that's the Dixie cup approach to relationships. You have a little bit of this, you have a little bit of that, but since healing, the atonement is a total commitment. We use relationships as being able to approach the total of commitment. So we have a marriage for us as a commitment. We actually are one of the rare ones who got legally married as well. And that usually has to serve a purpose beyond just the deep spiritual commitment. It might have other worldly, benefits. But for me, it was commitment that I was going to go towards what was given and not allow my mind to think as soon as it gets tough, oh, I can just back out of this. Or so it's almost like it's almost the closest thing I could say is it feels like a lifetime commitment. Like that's the way we have to approach it. It's for lifetime. And that Jesus is in charge of that. So it was incredibly stabilizing for me. I didn't know. I thought the community itself, because we're all called to leave behind the entire world and go towards God. It can look very differently for everybody. But I thought in that process, the community would be a stabilizing factor for me, and it was initially. But eventually the community itself wasn't what truly was the stabilizing factor. It was a commitment to a relationship with Emily. And that somehow, all of a sudden, I heard a friend just recently talk about this. Yeah, something in my mind quieted down and relaxed once I made the commitment, like, oh, I don't need to search in that way anymore. I didn't even consciously know how much the mind was feeling unstable without that commitment. And then it allowed all of this deeper stuff, the unconscious, to come up. It was really my call for safety. Relationship was a place where I felt safe to open up deeper about private thoughts that I didn't even know I had. I thought, oh yeah, I'm just sharing with the community. Or I don't know if you've seen, I have an online show called From the Bottom Up, where it's pretty raw. But this was actually where the healing started to take place. I would get to share it and see the reaction. Oh, well, that wasn't, no reaction there, huh? Funny. Maybe that thought wasn't so brutal. Or, oh, wow, that's a big reaction to that one. Okay, let's try that a few more times. Okay, it's not being healed by sharing it anymore. Okay, Jesus, help me internally with this. Oh, okay, you want me to say something? Oh, so it was this giant kind of like experiment, a petri bowl in the beginning where you're just like, how do you get out of this in terms of peace, state of mind? How do you get into peace, state of mind? So yeah, the marriage was mostly about commitment and using it as a practice realm to clear my thoughts. And then I think now we're more in a phase where the relationship is being used to bless, like we're in a more of an oversight role in Mexico with a lot of different community members. It's temporary, but it's being used to pray together about what serves the whole. What are your thoughts with what's happening in this situation in the ministry? What are your thoughts? What's happening over here? And so we're praying together. Oh, you hear that? I hear that. And okay, support. We're together in it. Jesus says 2 or more are gathered. There I am. So
I think the word safety kind of comes up in my mind when you ask, because I think for me, like I was already sharing, like that belief in well, there was a very strong belief in loss for me, and a feeling like I could do something wrong, like the wrongness would get triggered. And so I feel like there's something with the symbol of marriage that allowed that part of the mind to just relax, to not have that as an overlay on everything that was coming up, like whatever healing that would be intense enough. And then on top of it, it was like, oh, I could lose the relationship, or I could make a mistake that it would have a consequence. So I think that was helpful for me in my mind. And beyond that, I actually don't know the help, like why the spirit brought that in for reasons I don't even understand. But what I do trust is that the spirit did give that symbol. And it was something that just kind of the signs and symbols came in very clearly. And it just felt like the spirit was really behind it and supporting it. So I feel like with a lot of things, like there's things that resonate with why that would have come in, but in a bigger scale, I actually don't know, but it feels right. And it feels like it's brought me in the direction of deepening and a deeper sense of commitment. But yeah, the commitment isn't really to Jason or a person, even if in form, that's the symbol that's given. It's like this is a guided step given by the Holy Spirit to deepen. And yeah, something about that just feels very, very right.
So, and where you are now, let's say in the relationship, are there things that you feel like still return today? Are there notes of specialness, or do you feel like there's been a shift and that it's more that's not even a question anymore? Can you see more specialness in the beginning, like some examples of the beginning as opposed to where you are now?
I feel for me, there's still a washing happening. And I think whenever the desire comes up to like want something from the relationship or want something from Jason, anything, yeah, it can still come up. Like there's a feeling that there's something lacking and I need to find it outside of myself. But I feel it's much more infrequent now. Whereas before I couldn't even see what was going on at the beginning. It was just like a lot of intensity. And I didn't even know that was what I was doing in my mind. And I feel now it's not the majority of the time. Actually, it's more now joining in the collaboration, and there's a sense of lightness, and there's a real ease. And then yet something may still trigger or come up, and there's the temptation to fall into that weakness. It's not really about the relationship or about Jason, but it's that decision in the mind. Am I going to fall into that sense of weakness or really come back to the spirit within and find that strength within? So I still feel there's a healing going on, but it feels very different to me now. It's much more conscious. And it's quicker to see it and come out of it.
I was curious too, Jean, you wrote, obviously the movie workshop this week has put a focus on this, but also with the inmates, there's a big common thread on this subject, as well as the desire for special relationship, romantic partners, and how to deal with that. What did you mean by that?
With the prison ministry, my curiosity and the lesson of relationship really started for me this summer and has just been going and going, and that's how this conversation got started. And then I started with this prison ministry, and funny enough, what do they all want to talk about is, I want a relationship. I wish I had a relationship. Like,
Wow.
question. I've been wondering about these things too. So, and yeah, so this is a constant subject with the inmates, and then seemingly different, but it's the exact same thing. I can think of one example where one person is in a relationship and is getting married next month, and it's kind of become an idol for him, and the relationship is everything to him, and it's just all he can talk about, and he just is so excited. And all the other guys are kind of like, okay, enough already, like, all right, you're in love, like. So I've been all this has been in my mind lately quite a bit, and just exchanging with them and their particular situation seemingly, and my own experiences going from, I came into this relationship question for 10 years refusing even the idea of a relationship with a man, we'll say, basically, and then coming in and realizing, okay, I can't put limits on it myself. That's making my own decision. So I guess, okay, yeah, I'm open to it. And then it was like, okay, here, try it. And then it was like, oh, I really do want one. This is cool. I'm really learning a lot from this. And then it was like, wait, this feels the same as not wanting one. It's like I'm making up ideas of my own. And that's what I was finding in the prisons was this idea, like Emily spoke to a bit of what a relationship will bring me, what it's going to do for me, what can I get, and will I finally feel loved? And
Mm.
will I know what love is? So that's where I was coming from with this question because it seems so common. It's like whether we are refusing relationship or longing for one, it's the same thing. It's us, our little
Yeah.
personal identities,
Yeah.
thinking there's something to be gained from a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I was coming from, and I would love to hear you guys speak on this desire for relationship and or the desire to not have a relationship and how we can be honest and authentic about it, but still get the lesson. And do we seek it in form, or do we just sit and wait, hoping, or how would you address this question if you had
Yeah.
20 inmates asking you this question?
Well, probably the short line I would say is if you can give over the control and the timing of it to the spirit, that is the best because you will not be held back by anything that you truly need. Nothing can hold it back, even prison. If you truly need it, it will break open the bars. Somehow it will come in, you know. And it's the self-direction that's the issue. Because when I was trying, even before community, I thought I'd go dating. It just is terrible. It did not work at all. You know, you're trying to control the look and how and dating. It's just like, but when I surrendered, I actually surrendered a little too far. And I thought, well, I must be done with relationships because that didn't work. It was almost more like repression, you know, like, oh, well, I must be over and done with that. A lot of us, or at least my perception, a lot of us in the community may have been monks in previous lifetimes, you know, Catholic monks or nuns or whatever. You come to this community and Jesus is not into repression and denial. So for those that it's really helpful, you know, to face the underlying thoughts and beliefs and desires, it comes up and there is opportunities here to have committed relationships for healing. So once I let go of the self-direction of I'm going to try to get it or I'm done with it, then Jesus was waiting, you know, with a relationship that he chose that would truly be of benefit for healing. If we choose personally, it actually can be a distraction on the path and take us away from our true peace and happiness. So that's probably the biggest factor I've loved about joining on it. Kind of like you know, I think the Indians in India got a lot of flack for arranged marriages because the people would be like, oh, don't you have to have some say or go with love? Don't you have to be in love? But you know, the deeper you go, you get kind of honest. You're like, I don't really know what love is, but I'm attracted to relationships. Okay. I'm attracted to honest. Don't know what love is. Okay. Spirit can use that. Okay, great. Now the spirit can arrange the relationships. As long as the spirit's the one doing the arranging, then it's a maximum benefit because what you do need to see the attractions get met. But like Emily said, a lot of the things that I thought was really there. Oh my God. There's an interesting line in the course that I read recently where he says, you can either push relationships away or you can even seem to act the fantasies out. But you really can't act them out because unless the mind believes that you're acting it out, it's the wish behind that stays unfulfilled. So the way I took from that is there may be some rare cases where you actually believe in the moment your fantasy is perfectly fulfilled. And somehow then maybe it's like, what's that famous song, Mick Jagger, ain't got, or the ain't no satisfaction. Can't get no satisfaction. And you see it, wow, oh my God, I got exactly what I wanted. And it wasn't it. But I've had friends tell me that unless you're super present in that moment, in that split second, the ego fills in the gap with another fantasy that, again, you got to try to fulfill out and most likely actually never get fulfilled. You don't even get that experience of, I didn't get satisfaction. You're just constantly searching for it. But like Jim Carrey, he said, and I've heard a lot of these like really wealthy actors who've gone through the whole thing, all the life experiences. They say, I wish everybody could have the experience that I had of fame, fortune, relationships, and money, so they could see that it's not in that. But I think, yeah, most of us probably still have the wish for fantasy fulfillment. But that line in the Course where he says, don't worry about even trying to fulfill the fantasies, because you really can't. The wish behind it stays the same. So when you give over that control to the spirit of form and relationships and money and everything, he's doing everything to heal the wish, the mistaken desire that's trying to get fulfillment in form. So it was really touched me.
That moment myself where I got honest and said, okay, this is what I want, and I really don't feel to budge on this. like I know this is my fantasy, and I know it's me asking for this. So Spirit, can you help me change my mind? Can you make it look so good to have a relationship, or make it look so, like help me with this, because I know I'm pretty fixed on this one. And that week, through all just the way Spirit was guiding my thinking from that moment where there was that tiny bit of, okay, I'll listen, but all my conditions added to it. That week, I just started hearing the song, I want to know what love is. Everywhere I went, it's like, I want to know what love is. And it was like this honest moment came where it was like, hey, do I know what love is? And no. And I really want to know, like, wow, I'm really curious about that. And that's when all these holy relationship projects and assignments and thoughts started coming in, from that one moment of honestly wanting to know what is this? And the only way to answer it is going to be through experience. So that's what I've been getting. It's like just experiences of love and experience of not love through it. So yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, and then there's a lot of focus I find about a very common question you see in retreats and online is how to know when a relationship's over.
Well, I've got a parable in my mind that then I'll bring it back to my own experience. But when David was traveling around in his early days, he would go to these gatherings, and he went to this one gathering, and the lady said, how do I know if I'm supposed to break up with my partner? Because there's so many issues, and I'm constantly angry at him, and I've got all this stuff. So there's lots of forgiveness, right? So I just want to forgive. I want to practice. Great, beautiful. Okay, so she shared, I don't know what David said, but then he went back the next year, and the same woman spoke up again and said, how do you know when you're supposed to end a relationship? Because, I'm really pissed at him and he does all these things, but they're great opportunities to forget. David's like, yeah. Third year, he went around, the same woman asked the question again in the same way. And I think you can feel the vibe of it, that yes, it's all about forgiveness, but it has to be orchestrated by the Spirit. You cannot self-direct the relationships coming together, and you cannot self-direct when there might be some maximization. We call it, it's maximized because there isn't a freshness or a vitality or an underlying love underneath it. And it's not a conceptual forgiveness that you're supposed to use to trap you in the relationship. It's meant to be through attraction and vibrancy. And I think ultimately, you know, in your own heart, and you have to follow that intuitive voice and take the risk to either get into, or in this case, leave informed. But Jesus says in the Course in Miracles that there's 3 levels of relationships. You know, one is like casual encounter in an elevator where you seem to bump into each other. And there's the second level, which is a more sustained teaching, learning that, you know, could be months or years. And then the third level is lifelong. And most often, he says, quite often with the lifelong, they might even be quite antagonistic towards each other. But if the two accept it, there's the perfect healing opportunity. I would say most of the relationships are within level 2, you could call them, sustained teaching, learning. So it's going to be a coming together and a going apart. But he said whenever those maximize, they're not a real end. It's like they end somewhere in the mind, and both know it, and almost like it has this ethereal feel of you come back together in a real way in the mind some way. So don't worry. It's like you can just relax on forms coming and going. That's part of the plan.
Did you have that question too? Like, how do I know? Or was it just very obvious? Did Spirit make it very obvious? How did that happen with you guys? How did you approach it?
I was still in denial at that time about the need for a relationship as my path. And I was doing what I thought was guided, but I wasn't receiving the benefits of it because my heart wasn't completely in alignment with it. So the separation was more my decision to then find out, oh, it is actually what I wanted. I wasn't trapped in this. So from that sense of freedom, really freedom's in the mind, but from that perceived sense of freedom, I was able to get in touch with my desire more. And then that's where the Spain part came back. I came in at that point after she had that dream with my full heart. And that's when everything really started skyrocketing for the healing, because I was fully behind it. She was fully behind it. And ego didn't have, its days were numbered.
I feel like whether it's about like a relationship ending or it's really anything in form, what's brought me the most peace is to really focus on my desire to want to be shown. Like I want the Spirit to make it obvious, because otherwise, if you're trying to take your cues off the world, and especially if there's an investment for a certain outcome of how it's to look, there can be a lot of anxiety there. But I've had so many experiences when like I'm truly willing to give it 100% to the Spirit, and instantly I will feel the peace. Like it comes off the outcome. Like, does the relationship look this way or this way? Does anything look this way or that way? The fear is trying to hold on to how I think I want it to be, and then wanting this, like demanding that the Spirit make it so. But to get to that point of, okay, even being honest, like this is what I think I want. This is like, there's a desire for it, but ultimately underneath it, I truly want what you would give me, what's truly going to bring me peace of mind. And it's like the whole world goes still in that. And I feel like it's very easy. Then either it'll come from within, the clarity, or the world will just shift to bring about the outcome. But somewhere I know that it's connected with my own prayer. And I have had that experience in relationships where, like I remember in one relationship, I still thought I really wanted it, but more and more it was coming into my mind. I'm in a lot of pain. And I remember saying to Jesus, I'd actually just found the Course, if this relationship truly is not helpful for me, break the chains, please break the chains. And I never saw him again. We broke up, but it was never an in-person encounter after that. And I really saw, wow, once I was willing to fully give it over, the Spirit could take away what was hurting me. And then that was the whole beginning of my deepening with A Course in Miracles. And I had other examples in relationships. It was kind of similar, but it came from that 100% desire in my heart to want to know what was given by the Spirit. And it's very rapid then. It's like, yeah, it's shown pretty quickly.
Make it obvious. I
Yeah.
like that.
It's just thinking of my own experience. It was before the course came into my awareness. But I had a kind of a week of bliss and joy, and had my first taste of peace. And the funny thing to me, looking back now, is the moment where that seemed to end, where I went back into fear and anxiety, was I heard this question. It wasn't a question. I heard this statement: in this marriage, you're not going to go any further with this, because I just discovered this whole idea of spirituality, and that you're not who you think you are, and there's more to life than this. And I was just completely ecstatic. And then this thought came, but in this marriage, you're not gonna go any further with this. And in my mind, I said, I choose the marriage. And I was like so scared that I said, okay, I choose the marriage. And then within a year, found myself maybe 9 months later in a moment in front of my husband, hearing in my voice divorce, and in my mind saying no, and then hearing my mouth say I want a divorce. Like, how I love looking back on it now. At the time it was not fun, but looking back on it now, I can see it didn't matter what I thought I wanted. Even like what was going to happen was going to happen. Yeah. My real prayer, the true prayer, was to know peace and know love. And so really from that point on, I felt like we don't even have to decide. It kind of relieved me of this idea I have to decide anything, because it's going to happen. The script is written.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had no concept of not making decisions on my own or turning things over to Spirit. But even then, it was operating. It's like, you don't have to decide. It's going to play out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel really grateful that you're willing to share about these things. It's so helpful to not see just inform and make conclusions about it, but to really get to know what the healing is behind it. It's such a great opportunity. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you so much.
I have one quote I'd like to read. So this is from the same chapter 8:7, the body as means of communication. Because you're all of our talk here, it's the purpose underneath, the purpose of the relationship. That's everything, whether it's given by the ego or used by the ego or the Spirit. So this is paragraph 4. Communication ends separation. Attack promotes it. The body is beautiful or ugly, peaceful or savage, helpful or harmful, according to the use to which it is put. And in the body of another, you will see the use to which you have put yours. If the body becomes a means you give to the Holy Spirit to use on behalf of union of the sonship, you will not see anything physical except as what it is. Use it for truth and you will see it truly. Misuse it and you will misunderstand it, because you have already done so by misusing. Interpret anything apart from the Holy Spirit and you will mistrust it.
This love's beyond romantic. This love cannot be contained. It's bigger than the two of us. Dissolves walls and breaks the chain.